Welcome to Our Last Meal, the podcast on grief, loss, and food. I'm your host, Andrew, and every episode I talk with a guest about someone important in their life, someone they've lost, and what role food played in their relationship. This week I talk with Felicity Azura. Felicity started out talking me through what food she would eat for her last day on earth before talking with me about her grandfather. She was a lot of fun to talk with, and I hope you enjoy the episode as always. If you do enjoy it, I would love it if you would share it with a friend, a family member, or a stranger. Give it a like and review on whatever podcast platform you use. Before we jump in, I will just always give the content warning up top that the show does talk about death, so please be mindful as you listen. Hello and welcome to Our Last Meal. I'm your host, Andrew, and my guest this week is Felicity Azura, host of the Pro Cuddle Hustle podcast. Felicity, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad I was able to get you on. Full transparency, we just spent like a half an hour just kind of chatting before we really got into it. It's been nice just to get to talk to you and get to know you a little bit. So I know the first thing that we talked about whenever you got on was the food you're eating. You had was it falafel fries tonight?
Yes, I am eating falafel fries. They're delicious.
Yeah, I'm jealous, if I'm being completely honest with you.
I'm very spoiled because I live in San Francisco. I don't have a list of like the top 10 food capitals of the United States, but my biased Bay Area self is going to put San Francisco very high on that list.
So, okay, maybe it is biased, but it's biased because you know it well, right? So you can speak intelligently on saying that, hey, we've got good food.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. I know I have certain biases myself when it comes to, we talked about North Carolina and what food scene is like here. Very dependent on where you are. I am a big believer that barbecue in North Carolina is the best across the country. I would have that fight with anybody. So no judgment at all.
My boyfriend does have family in North Carolina, so I do have a reason to go to North Carolina and try their barbecue. I would like to read off the list of foods I would eat if I could choose what I eat on my last day alive.
Yeah, I know. So I'll say I have not had anybody do this yet, but I remember you told me you've been thinking about this. I think this is a really cool concept. I've had this thought in the back of my head before, like what would be my death row like last meal, and then I'm also like thinking, why would I be on death row? I don't think I would ever do anything like that. But the idea of thinking about a last meal or last day is cool. So tell me, what would you have?
Mm-hmm. Okay. The only fruit I have on my list is dragon fruit. And dragon fruit is an S tier fruit. I like the pink ones. I like the white ones. I don't think dragon fruit comes in other colors. If I'm wrong, someone please correct me.
You probably love those anyway, right?
Yeah. And I am 100% Asian, so that really influences my choices. I want to eat fried rice. I want to eat Chinese sauteed string beans. I don't know if edamame is a strictly Japanese thing, but I know when you go to Japanese restaurants, one of the appetizers is edamame or garlic edamame. And garlic edamame, it's more expensive, but I can guarantee you're going to have a good time eating garlic edamame. So one of my comfort foods, one of my comfort foods is seafood hủ tiếu. And if you're not Vietnamese, you may have heard of rice noodle pho before. There's like the egg noodle, there's the rice noodle, there's vermicelli, but rice noodle is my favorite kind of noodle in Vietnamese cuisine, and seafood hủ tiếu is so good, and it's served with fake crab meat, and I thought fake crab meat was vegetarian until I was an adult, And then I was like, wait, fake crab meat is just fish? And I mean, I guess that makes sense because not every person who's allergic to shellfish is allergic to white fish.
Right.
So there's that. And I really like sweet potato fries with Cajun dip. I go to so many businesses, okay, mostly milk tea places that have sweet potato fries on their menu, but they don't pair it with a sauce. I love me some milk tea places, but y'all need to serve your sweet potato fries with a sauce. And so, I mean, the only place you're gonna find it with Cajun dip it would be a Cajun place, and um, unfortunately, I don't think there are that many Cajun places in the San Francisco Bay Area. So
I'm gonna. So you said
I,
something that about
yeah,
fries should have a sauce anyway. Like
fries should have a sauce.
all like sweet potato, plain white fries, like all fries should have sauces. Like they should, and not just ketchup. I fries are the only time I can handle ketchup at all. Like other than that, I just don't like it. But there should be some kind of sauce anytime you get fries. I don't know who's out here just eating dry fries.
Oh, my boyfriend is a hardcore dry fry eater. Um, I am also a hardcore lover of ketchup. And listeners cannot see, but I have a completely red bedroom, and I'm wearing head to toe red. It's not because I love ketchup, it's because red is a pretty color. But you know what? As a 6-year-old, every time I went to McDonald's, and my mom would take me to McDonald's maybe once a week, maybe twice a month, um, and she would get me the Happy Meal. I would, like, 5-year-old me would literally just drink the ketchup. I'm sure some people are having visceral reactions, but I was 5. Okay, I was a kindergartner. I liked drinking ketchup from the sauce packets. And
No
you know
judgment.
what? It's more sustainable than being an adult who orders takeout all the time and has like 50 different bags of like soy sauce and ketchup and all that, just collecting dust in the pantry. I say that because I'm now doing it as an adult. My parents are now doing it. Um, and my parents are also the kinds of people who, when they order takeout and it comes with those like wooden cheap chopsticks, they just collect all of it. And it's like, Mom, Dad, we're Chinese. We have like 500 chopsticks at home. Like, we don't need to save these like single use wooden chopsticks. And I will say, here in San Francisco, people are acting as if we're in pre-COVID times. Yes, there's still a lot of outdoor seating at restaurants, but it's pretty common. You'll sit down at like a nice Japanese restaurant or a nice Chinese restaurant, and they'll give you your napkin and they'll give you your water, but they'll still give you these single-use wooden chopsticks. And it's like,
So wasteful.
either you're gonna pretend like COVID isn't here, or you're gonna act like COVID is here. And it's like, make up your mind. I mean, COVID is still here, but
Yeah.
make up your mind. If you're going to have indoor seating and not going to require masks, at least give me the nice chopsticks. This is such a first world problem, but I would argue that despite living in the first world, I'm still getting COVID every now and then. And oh gosh, I'm so glad both times I had COVID, I could still smell and enjoy the taste of food.
Oh, see, we had COVID about 2 years ago. We caught it, and we had the side effect of no smell, no taste.
That
And
sucks.
what? Oh, it was the worst. I love to eat. I love to eat,
Mm-hmm.
and I lost a lot of weight whenever I had COVID, just because I just not having the taste. There's not as much drive to actually eat. And the reason I knew I had it, I told you before we got going that there was a Malaysian restaurant that we used to order takeout from, and I was
Mm-hmm.
eating this like fire pepper chicken. So it was really spicy, delicious chicken and egg fried rice. And I'm eating the chicken, and I'm like, I can tell that this is hot, but I can't really taste it, and it doesn't really feel that hot. And that's when I had that first pain of like, oh God, I think I've got COVID. And it was just such a weird sensation to just be eating something that is just very flavorful, but just nothing.
That was
I
the only
hate it.
symptom?
No, I also had a really bad cough.
Oh
My,
no.
my
Oh
yeah.
god.
So my wife at one point she thought I was gonna have to go to the hospital, just
Oh no.
because it was that bad. Thankfully we were okay. Um, but yeah, no, it sucked. It was the sickest I've been since I had the flu. You said you had it twice, but thankfully you were able to
I
keep
caught
your.
it twice this, or not twice this month, but my second time I caught it was this month.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I hope you're feeling better now.
Well, I am feeling a lot better, but it's just it my boyfriend thinks that I actually caught it earlier
Yeah.
cuz when I tested positive, I decided to take another test 7 days later, not 12 or 14 days later like a lot of people recommend, but I decided to take another test 7 days later and it came out negative. So he's like, "You may have caught COVID a week before you took your first positive test."
And then just been asymptomatic for a few days. That's possible.
But it's just it's so frustrating because I I I I don't like go to the same two places every single day. I'm like traveling everywhere and I it would be extremely hard to trace the origin of where I got it. Like
Oh no.
in 2020 was it, people were like, oh my gosh, contact tracing is so great. In this one town alone we figured out that 300 people got COVID through just touching this one specific doorbell, and I'm like, what happened? We're
Everybody
so
just goes one of
depraved
two
now.
places. Well, it's once all the restrictions came up, I guess everybody just decided I'm gonna go everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the COVID thing though, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. We the worst part was we got our first vaccine, and then we got that on a Friday, and then I was diagnosed with COVID I think on a Wednesday. So we were exposed right before we had the first shot. Got the shot, we had a really rough weekend, and we're like, okay, side effects were pretty bad, but we kind of expected that. And then a few days later, we're sick. So that wasn't fun. That was not fun.
I would be afraid that having COVID whilst you get the shot would make it less effective.
I so the doctors, whenever we got our second shot, said, okay, um, your second dose, we still recommend you get it. But the second dose, if you had a bad reaction to the first one, but you've had COVID, I think they said that it might not be quite as bad. The second shot, it kicked our asses too. We were both sick all weekend, just feeling like crap. And then with the booster shot, we felt rough for a day, but it's one of those things. It's having had the side effects for a day from a shot versus having had COVID for a week or two and thinking I'm going to end up in the hospital. I'd rather feel like crap for a day.
It seems like everyone has a different vaccine story because my ex-boyfriend and I, we got the Johnson and Johnson on the same day, and that one really whooped my ass. And
No.
to this day, it's the only COVID vaccine I've gotten that whooped my ass. My ex and I, we both got our boosters, but Pfizer instead of Johnson and Johnson. And so with Pfizer, I decided to get one shot. I'm like, one shot from Pfizer is good enough as a booster. Whereas he was like, but people normally get two shots, so I'm gonna get two shots as my booster. Like he counts both of those as his one booster. I'm like, oh my god,
That's a lot.
that's intense. But then again, when I got my monkeypox vaccine, they're like, you need to get it twice, like a Pfizer shot. I'm like, what? You need two for monkeypox? And then I speak to other people, and they're like, yeah, my monkeypox is more like the Johnson and Johnson, where it's like one shot and then you're done.
Oh God, yeah. I haven't got that one. I haven't been recommended that one yet. I think I completely derailed us there. You were talking through your list of foods.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Um, Boiled bok choy. I am so simple when it comes to my broccoli, my bok choy. You just boil it in water, and it's the best thing I've ever tasted. I mean, you could season it with oyster sauce or hoisin sauce, as I like to call it.
Okay.
But boiled bok choy is good on its own. You just gotta drain it so it doesn't get soggy. My parents would marinate chicken wings and thighs. I don't think the breast. In the same marinade, like throughout my entire childhood, and I never got bored of the chicken they would serve me because they use this Korean marinade, and oh my god, it tastes so good. And I remember my mom's friend when I was a kid. She told my mom, "Oh, you should start cooking. You should start marinating chicken the way I marinate it." And I was like, "Oh no!" And the thing is, my mom's friend, I hope she's not listening to this. She said something like Coca-Cola to marinate the chicken, and I'm like, I'm not a chicken aficionado. I'm not a meat extraordinaire, but I don't think a dark soda or any soda would be a good meat marinade. I'm sure that barbecue sauce has so much sugar already. Don't marinate that shit with Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never tried meat marinated in soda. I've heard of it, but yeah, I don't like really, really sweet things that much anyway, so I feel like that'd be too much.
With all due respect, that sounds very like Midwestern trash. And this is coming from a Chinese woman, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, at least
from the South, man.
At least
not offended.
My mom, or not my mom, at least my aunt, who is a Chinese woman and spent many years in the Midwest, when she cooks Midwestern food for me, it's like soft, warm potatoes with like melted cheese. It's delicious. It's not like soda marinated chicken.
I was gonna say probably everything covered in cheese if it's Midwestern.
Yeah, I love cheese. 80% of Asian Americans are lactose intolerant. I am of the 20% that's not lactose intolerant, and I'm so grateful. Because I can eat ice cream, I can eat cheese.
I've heard that there's a high rate of lactose intolerance in that community. So yeah, you definitely got lucky. Because cheese is so good. I'm sorry, it's just so good.
I am not resistant to COVID, but at least I'm not lactose intolerant. So in a way, that is a win. So my list is almost done. This is the only Korean dish on my last meals list. Japchae is noodles made out of sweet potato, and I have no clue how you turn sweet potato into noodles, but Koreans have mastered the art of sweet potato noodles. Now that I say this out loud, I have sweet potato fries and sweet potato noodles. One of these days, I just have to have an all sweet potato meal. Okay. So I'm gonna ask another question.
Do you like potatoes?
What about potatoes?
Do you like plain sweet potatoes?
I do. Okay. But I also like ordering Japanese tempura, and then they fry vegetables and sweet potatoes. Those are good. I should have put that on my list. Anyways, another Cantonese staple, because I'm Cantonese, beef ho fun. So ho fun and chow fun are not the same thing. Ho fun is noodles, except they're flat. But they're not skinny flat noodles like Thai drunken noodles. These are like fat, or not fat. These are wide, flat noodles, and they're so good. And I normally am not a simple dish person. Like, I'll eat egg fried rice, but I do prefer more ingredients than just scrambled chicken egg. But beef ho fun is a very simple dish that I could eat my entire body weight in. This is not even a dish. This is just a type of meat. If you asked 10-year-old me what is my favorite food, she would have told you char siu. And so char siu is the Cantonese pronunciation. The Mandarin pronunciation is cha shao. My family taught me Cantonese before they taught me Mandarin, so Cantonese is my default language. And last but not least, there's a story with this, and this is like the most out of left field dish, because it's not like some authentic Asian dish. It is dulce de leche McFlurries. I am not being paid by McDonald's to say this, but dulce de leche is. I did not know what that was until I was maybe 13, and that was because I was watching some YouTube videos from an Argentinian person. I did not actually eat dulce de leche until I got older, but I think dulce de leche is just, you get this can of condensed milk and then you boil it.
Yeah.
I've never tried that myself.
I would be afraid I'd screw it up and get sick.
Oh, okay.
That would be my
concern. I did not know until this week that you're not supposed to eat potatoes that have sprouted.
Did you eat potatoes that had sprouted?
No, but I was planning on making hash browns because I know my boyfriend loves hash browns. And he's like, no, throw that away. You can't eat potatoes that have sprouted. And I'm like, what? Why? And then he's like, you'll get bad stomach aches for a few days. And I was really sad because I'm 24. I've eaten potatoes more times than I can remember. And no one has bothered to tell me this very important, possibly life-saving information. Yeah. Unfortunately, my parents did a lot of cooking for me growing up, but they didn't do a lot of teaching me how to cook. So, back to the dulce de leche. I guess it goes back to my Vietnamese roots because Vietnamese people love condensed milk. And most Vietnamese people's go-to flavoring for coffee is condensed milk. And the thing is, every time I eat or buy condensed milk, it always goes bad. I'll like consume maybe 20% of it and then I have to throw the rest out, which makes me sad because it's wasteful. But also when I, eat fruit, when I drink coffee, I don't need to put a shit ton of condensed milk in it. I just need to put a tiny bit. But, oh well, back to the dulce de leche McFlurries. It's very, very, very rare in California to find a McDonald's with the ice cream machine working. And when the ice, it's not just California, but
no, it's everywhere.
When the ice cream machine is not working, that means you cannot have McFlurries. And even if you can have McFlurries, chances are they're only going to have the Oreo flavor. And, there's more than just the Oreo flavor. If you're really lucky, you'll find a place with M&Ms. If you're really lucky, you'll find a place with dulce de leche. And I kid you not, the only McDonald's that I can count on to have their ice cream machine working on any day is the McDonald's on Highway 5 in California. So if you're not familiar with the highways, there are many different highways that connect Sacramento and San Francisco to Los Angeles. Highway 5 is the most efficient way. If you take the other highways, it's going to take you much, much longer to get to Los Angeles. So if time is of the essence, you take Highway 5. You don't get spectacular views of the Golden Beaches or the Pacific Ocean, but it gets the job done. And there are a lot of rest stops and fast food chains along the way. And so I more often just go on a road trip to Los Angeles than I take a plane ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And one of the very, very few perks of taking the road is going to the McDonald's along the way and knowing that the ice cream machine will be working and they're going to have the dulce de leche option.
So
it's one of the very few I-5 cuisines. out there. Yeah.
So are you driving on purpose just to get the McFlurry? And I'm not judging
No,
you
I'm
for
not
this, by
going
the way.
there just for the McDonald's. But I'm not gonna lie, there are very, very, very few motels along Highway 5, and you can definitely drive to Los Angeles from San Francisco in a few hours. But another part of me is like, I wonder what it'd be like to stay at a motel. Like some days, I'm like, you know what? I would love to stay in this wonderful, luxurious hotel with a spa. But then there were other days where I'm like, kind of want to go to this like like Scandinavian themed motel in the middle of Interstate 5.
That sounds dope as
Um,
hell.
yeah. I think
I
there's
may
this
also have
like
weird sense of.
Danish
Go ahead.
themed village near Santa Barbara in California. I don't expect people outside of my state to know what Santa Barbara is, but like I'm fascinated by how the lesser known Californian cities create their identities. Like there's this one very how do I put it, secluded town in California called Hollister, and they're not known for much. I mainly know them because they have Renaissance Fair every September, and that's
I
the
was gonna
only
say I
time I
have
go to Hollister.
everyone in North Carolina knows them because of their jeans.
Their jeans.
The clothing company Hollister.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Although
Mhm.
you explained something I've always wondered. They've always, anytime I went into the store when I was at the mall, they always had the lights were really dark. There was way too much cologne like pumping through the
Way
air
too much
vents.
cologne.
Yeah, and then they'd have it was always beach stuff, and then there was always videos of like
And it's not
people
even a
surfing.
beach town. It's like super inland. And like
So
if
their
you ask
life,
anyone in California, what do you know what do you know about Hollister, California? They're probably going to say, "Oh yeah, they have the Renaissance Fair every September. I went to a Ren Fair once."
honestly, this disappoints me that like the Hollister stores don't just have videos of people like jousting and you know people walking around with giant turkey legs. I would like
Mhm.
the store so much more if it
I
was that.
I try very, very hard to not name names nor name companies on my podcast, but it seems like you're very, very comfortable with name dropping companies. So I'm like, are you looking for a
Sure.
sponsor? Do you want that sponsor from McDonald's and Hollister?
No,
Because we're
it's
giving out free marketing advice
well, yeah,
or
that's the thing.
customer recommendations.
Yeah. Well, hey, I have not recommended McDonald's or Hollister. I've just acknowledged them. Um, that
Oh,
being
okay.
said, the McFlurry, I could go for a McFlurry. I won't lie about that.
I will say some toppings are a bit iffy for frozen yogurt or ice cream. Like if you put
Sure.
gummy bears on ice cream, it's gonna become hard as a rock. And I guess the same applies to M&Ms. But when you order an M&M McFlurry, they're like this tiny. They're so tiny. And
Right.
I remember, oh my gosh, the last time I was driving up Interstate 5 with my boyfriend, we got some M&M McFlurry at in McDonald's, and I let him eat it first. We were sharing it, and I was like, you know what? You can have the first bites. But what I didn't know was that the employees put all the M&Ms on the top. They didn't like mix it throughout the entire dessert. And so when he eats it, he consumes all the M&Ms and he just hands me the vanilla ice cream and I'm like, "What is this?
So yeah, I was gonna
What
say.
did you just do?
So you all you
You
got
don't
you
piss
didn't
off your driver."
so you didn't get an M&M McFlurry. You got vanilla ice cream with an M&M
I just
icing.
got eaten vanilla ice cream. Not even like fresh, uneaten vanilla ice cream. It was like slightly melted, eaten vanilla ice cream. But you know what? I love him and I forgive him. I didn't even think of it until now, and it's been months.
Oh man, yeah, that's disappointing. So were there any other foods on your last meal food list?
Oh, that was it. But I haven't listened to other episodes of your podcast, but I would imagine that a lot of people would discuss road trips with you, because you could have the shittiest food ever, but if you eat it during a very memorable road trip, it will still create something like some memories in the back of your mind where it's like, yeah, I may have gotten food poisoning at the one gas station, but you know what?
I had a good time.
They had some bomb ass like slushies or something.
Yeah. Well, so sorry. So, typically we talk about people that we've lost and the grief process around that, and then foods that we associate with them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so if there are foods if there are people in your life, and it's not always death. That's the thing I've talked to people about before. The people we lose, it could be through death. It could be growing apart. I've had people on the podcast who talk about friends that they're not in contact with anymore. I've had somebody who talked about kind of that sense of self and losing that self identity, and how food tied into that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess now I gotta start talking about my family. My mother grew up cooking for her grandma. Not grandma cooking for her, not grandma cooking with her. My mother took care of her grandma, so my great grandma, as her health deteriorated. And that's like bittersweet because you get to cook for your grandma, your lovely grandma. But then it's like, oh, that's why. And my grandma, my mom's mom, she never cooks with me. She never lets me cook for her. She has that mentality of, I am the elder figure. I am supposed to provide for you. You do whatever fun thing you want to do right now. I will cook for you because that's how I show love, which is wonderful. But I never got to have that experience that so many American kids have, and that is baking chocolate chip cookies with your grandma. I'm sure my grandma knows how to make those.
Yeah.
But she's a Cantonese woman. That's not like her go-to comfort meal. Her comfort meal is Chinese food because she's a very, very picky woman. And like my mother is a picky eater, but I think after marrying my dad, she broadened her horizons. Grandma, on the other hand, has very, very she grew up eating Chinese food, and so that's her comfort food. And then my mom married a Vietnamese man, and I mean, my grandma has lived in Vietnam too, but she lived in Vietnam married to a Chinese man, and so they would try to find Chinese food, and so there's only two Vietnamese dishes I can name that my mom's mom will eat if you take her to a Vietnamese restaurant, and that is bun gun and pho ga. And bun gun is, honestly, I don't really know. I think it's pork in rice, in like rice paper wraps, and you dip it in this vinegar sauce. It's pretty good. And pho ga is basically rice noodles with boiled chicken. And I'm someone who loves vegetables in her pho.
Yeah.
So eating just noodles with meat, it's like, I mean, it tastes good, but like, where's the carrots?
Something.
Where's the broccoli? Where's the bok choy? Where's the cabbage? I believe that, or I judge Vietnamese restaurants by their vegetarian dishes, even though I'm not vegetarian.
But okay, that makes sense though. I mean, if you treat vegetables right, you're probably going to treat all of your food right.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are some Vietnamese restaurants where if you order a vegetarian bowl, they'll just throw in cabbage and noodles, and cabbage is delicious, but like
Agreed.
Asian people, we put so much effort into just cutting our carrots. Like my boyfriend asked me to buy him Japanese curry the other day, and it was delicious. It had brown rice, it had the curry sauce, it had like broccoli, it had carrots, And I will say the carrots were inconsistent. Like there were some carrots that you could clearly tell they put more effort in, because some carrots, they were just like a circle. But then the other carrots, they were cut in the shape of a butterfly. I love it when Asian people cut their carrots in butterflies. But, this I ordered my curry 30 minutes before the restaurant closed down, so that probably explains why the carrots were cut inconsistently. But my boyfriend, on the other hand, he's like, no, the best time to go to a restaurant is right when they're about to close. And I'm like, whoa, that's rude. Did your parents not raise you right? But he's like, no. At the end of the day, they're like, we have a surplus of food. So when people order food, we're going to give them out in bigger portions.
Give as much as possible.
For the same price. So yeah, that's his thought process.
Fair enough. So,
yeah.
So I know, what other foods do you associate with your grandparents?
Oh. Well, with my dad's side, definitely Vietnamese food. There is a very specific art to Vietnamese rolls. Like, since both sides of my family eat meat, if I were to order an appetizer at a Vietnamese restaurant growing up, I would order the shrimp rolls, not like the fried egg roll. Okay, I would order that from time to time, but like the shrimp rolls with the wet rice paper, the shrimp with the lettuce and carrots, and oh my gosh, it's so good. And then you dip it in a peanut sauce. Like, you have to eat it with the peanut sauce. Like, I can excuse eating French fries without any sauce, but you have to have shrimp rolls with the peanut sauce, just like how you have to have lumpia with that really thick sauce. I don't know what it's called, but you've had lumpia, I'm sure.
Yeah, lumpia is. Oh my god! It's like a religious experience if you've never had lumpia.
It's a religious experience.
It is so good. Yeah. Lumpia, so good. And the thing is, like, there's nowhere that I'm aware of near me to get lumpia. There are no Filipino restaurants.
No.
So for me to get lumpia, like, the only times I've ever had it, whenever I was younger in my early 20s, I had a girlfriend who was Filipina. Her sister made some lumpia. It was the first time I tried it. It was amazing.
And it's homemade. Oh, yeah. So you could taste the love.
Yeah, and then there was my college, they had an international festival every year, and they would have booths, representing all of these different countries. And the Philippines booth one year, they were selling lumpia, so I'm like, I'm getting as much as I can. Lumpia is incredible.
I will say, it is difficult to make at home if you don't have a deep fryer.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, my boyfriend, oh, bless his soul, he did not know as a college student that you're not supposed to put things straight from the freezer into a deep fryer. So I was not present when this happened, but one of his funny stories is when he was in college, his family gave him some lumpia, and they were like, okay, just put this in the freezer immediately when you get home. And so, poor guy.
He didn't burn down the dorm, did he?
I don't think
for
so.
Legal purposes,
I mean, the only reason why I know not to put ice in a deep fryer is because I saw a video on like social media of someone doing it on the day they quit their job at some fast food place. Yeah. And the thing is, I became Serve Safe certified at 16 or 17 years old because a lot of minimum wage jobs require that you are a certified food handler. And they did a good job at teaching me these are the signs of mold, like these are the most common food allergies in the US. You should cook your meat to this temperature in Fahrenheit to prevent I don't know, salmonella and E. coli, but I don't recall them ever saying, you know what, this is what's going to happen if you put ice in a deep fryer. Um,
That's one of those. Maybe throw it out there. Like it's not a food safety thing
yeah.
necessarily, but it
Also,
is a
throw out
safety.
the potato thing with the sprouts. Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
I there and it's little things like that, and then it's like somebody expects you to know it, but if you've never been told that, how are you gonna know?
Exactly. So, whilst we're on the topic of the Serve Safe program, uh, I remember finding out at around 13 years of age that I have this disability called food dependent exercise induced anaphylaxis.
Yeah,
And when you edit this podcast, please include my disability part in, because it's like so underrepresented, and
yeah.
I rarely meet other people with the same disability as me. But um
Can you tell me more about
food,
it?
oh gosh, it's like, it's shortened to FDEIN. So capital F, capital D, capital E, capital, wait, FDEIN. So it's like anaphylaxis, but then it's just capital A and then lowercase n. And I'm pretty sure if you were to Google it, you'll be directed to a bunch of scholarly journals.
Yeah,
So, scholarly journals in the US, a majority of the time, you have to either pay to read them, or you have to
yeah,
already have an email address with a 4-year college.
yeah.
So even if you graduate college and then your college email becomes defunct, you don't get access to um, those databases anymore. It's Academia has so many problems, but that's a story for another day. And um, I have been to the hospital more times than I can remember because I'm having an anaphylactic reaction, which is basically an allergic reaction. And then I'll tell the doctors why I'm having an allergic reaction. And then they say, oh, you're the first person in 10 years who has that. And I work at the hospital like 6 days a week or some shit.
Oh my
And yeah, it's very lonely having this disability. And for some people, FDEIN means that they cannot eat certain foods shortly after exercising. But with me, I am not supposed to exercise after eating certain foods. And so, um, I am allergic to I have some of the most common food allergies in the United States. But as a
God. Really?
kid, as a 13-year-old, I didn't know that my allergies were so common. As an elementary schooler, and I don't know if this applies to elementary schools in North Carolina, but where I grew up, it was like, I shouldn't say death penalty, but it was like, as a kid, you would fear, you like, adults would put the fear of God in you regarding bringing peanuts to school. It's like,
Yep.
so many people are allergic to this. If you just open a bag of peanuts in the same room as a person who's allergic to peanuts, then they'll immediately start having an allergic reaction. And um, I hope I'm not using this word incorrectly, but I feel like that's a fear mongering thing, because adults would be like, don't bring peanuts to school, but they also would not tell you what are the signs of an allergic reaction. And so as a little kid, I would, exercise after eating my allergen foods, and I didn't even register that I was having an allergic reaction because no one ever told me what that's supposed to feel
Yeah.
like, what that's supposed to
It
look like.
it seems like it's half educated because and what you were saying just made me think too. How many kids go to lunch and then immediately after lunch you have PE, or you have like you go to the playground,
Yeah.
and what are you doing? You're gonna run around. You're exercising essentially. But you're right though about the signs of it. I mean, I have a child in elementary school who she said before, oh, so and so in my class had, they can't have, nuts. And it's like, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like peanut butter anyway, so yeah, I wouldn't send it to school just because she wouldn't eat it. But because of that, we're not going to send anything with peanuts or any kind of nuts in it. But I've never heard of them like teaching like, hey, this is what an allergic reaction looks like, and it really feels like a failure to not say this is what to look for.
Oh yeah, they need to start teaching economics and health and just so like foreign language and so many things starting from the elementary level, because I had so many classmates in elementary school literally break their arm on the playground. But since
Yeah,
they didn't know that's not supposed to happen, they would not tell an adult until hours later.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I think we should be teaching children that would be helpful, but basic things like that,
Mm-hmm.
because it helps you look out for other people, and I think that would be huge.
Yeah. When I was 18, I got a micro concussion at school, but I didn't tell anyone until maybe 10 hours later because I didn't register that what I experienced was a micro
Oh,
concussion. And so, I get a bump on my head and I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be like nothing in 5 minutes. But then, hours pass and my head is throbbing and I'm like, I don't think my skull is supposed to feel like this. And so then I
yeah.
finally went to the ER. But yeah, that's a failure on the state curriculum. You got to teach young kids what allergic reactions are and what broken bones are and what concussions are, because they do experience them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, and this is the thing as a parent. I try to ask as many questions as I can, just how was your day? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Everything okay? Because I mean, you have to. If you don't do that, then you're gonna miss things.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I have, as a child, before I understood my disability, I would get anaphylactic reactions like numerous, like almost every single month. But it wasn't until I went to an allergenist as a 13-year-old did I finally do all the blood work. And they're like, okay, we tested your blood. These are the things you're anaphylactic towards. And
yeah,
it's alcohol, non legume wheat, nuts, and shellfish, which is a lot of food allergies. That doesn't leave me with much left over. And so I know a lot of people, when they talk to a disabled person, like say celiacs or diabetes or food dependent exercise induced anaphylaxis, their solution is always like, why don't you just stop eating those foods altogether? But it's like, do you realize how hard it is to cut out gluten? Do you realize how hard it is to cut out like 4 like categories of food, especially as a Chinese person? Seafood is a huge part of our diet. And it's like,
right.
it's so easy when you're able-bodied to be like, oh, okay, just cut out alcohol or just cut out all this stuff. Like I've cut out alcohol not because of my disability, but because I just it's not, I don't view it as necessary. Like I'm gonna keep drinking water, I'm gonna keep drinking juice, I'm gonna keep drinking like almond milk, but I don't need alcohol.
Yeah,
Um, there's not really any nutritional value to it.
it's empty calories.
Um, and it's just like we invest so much money into the fad diet industry.
Yeah.
Like imagine the amazing things we could do if we invested that into public health.
It's wild to think
Like
how, yeah, just eating better in general, and giving more education on how to eat better, making healthy foods more accessible.
absolutely. Like when I was in 6th grade, everyone had to be enrolled in this class called Wheel. Um, and in Wheel, every 6 months you would move classrooms. Like maybe in September, you're going to take a music class. And then like October, you'll take a performing arts class. And then it'll rotate around between like acting and computer science and home economics. Honestly, home economics is such a weird term to me. It's just like domestic house labor. But anyways, that's
Yeah,
what they called it in middle school. And so like in home economics, I learned about cooking. And by cooking, I mean one day throughout that wheel class, everyone just boiled pasta. That was it. We didn't, okay, we also washed dishes afterwards, but it's like we didn't learn about how to make a sauce for the pasta. We didn't learn how to, garnish the pasta. We didn't learn how to make anything more advanced than just boiled pasta. And I wasn't even taught in that class or at home that when you're using a cutting board, you should put a dish rag underneath so it doesn't slide around. I was an adult when I learned that, and I'm like, how? It makes so much sense when you hear it, but it's like you have to say it out loud, because like as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, I would put yoga mats underneath crash mats when I would exercise, so if I fall, I don't break a leg. But when someone told me the cutting board trick, I was like, oh, it's just like what I do at the gym. You put a yoga mat underneath the crash mat. Like, it sounds so like simple and obvious when you do get it, but before you get it, it's like you don't realize what you're missing out on.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I do want to shift gears a little bit to one of the things that you told me whenever we were communicating prior to, and so it was one of the meals that you said that you wanted to talk about with your mom's dad, your maternal grandfather. Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable talking about that. So, okay. I don't really remember what I ate the last time I ate a meal with my maternal grandfather. I know the restaurant. It's this one restaurant that's still open. And I don't really remember what I talked about over that lunch. I just remember it was the first time I was introducing my then boyfriend to my grandfather. And so my mind was just focused on, like, let's make sure that this boyfriend, behaves well. Let's make sure that the boyfriend doesn't eat food he's not supposed to eat, because I dated a Muslim at the time, and so Muslims are not supposed to eat pork. Meanwhile, I took him to a Chinese restaurant where a lot of dishes are pork. So I was more focused on my then boyfriend, whom I was with for only 6 months, than I was on my aging grandfather, who I don't know how soon afterwards he passed away, but after he passed, I did tell my therapist. I told my therapist at the time that I couldn't stop thinking about the last meal I had with my grandfather and how much I wish I could have another meal with him, because that relationship I was in ended horribly. And it's like, it's no fair that this person got to eat a meal with my grandfather and live in my mind rent free. It's just, when I hear about other people discussing their last meal with their Asian grandparent, it's often like, oh yeah, my grandma lived underneath the same roof as me and my parents, and they would often cook for the whole family. And then one morning, my parents found them, like, they found grandma, and it's like she fell down and she was deceased. And then I never, thank goodness, had to stumble across her dead body. I got to spend a last meal with her, like laughing and talking about my day and all that good stuff. And it's like, I saw my grandfather whilst he was on his deathbed and his memory was fading away, and he recognized my sisters, but he didn't recognize me. And that really hurt. And my father told me not to take it personally, because, he was about to die. But it's like, does anyone really prepare you for the death of your grandparents? It just happens. And it feels like it feels like you got hit by a train, and you're like, I can't move on from this.
I'll say this.
And it's like, yeah.
No, I think that feeling's normal. That
Mm-hmm.
there is no. You're right. There's no. Even when you know it's gonna come,
Mm-hmm.
it's you know that a thing is gonna happen. But being in the thing, there is no real preparation for it. There's no saying like, okay, you're gonna feel this way, and this is how you respond to it, because everybody's gonna feel something different and respond differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a
I don't.
simplification, but
Yeah, I don't remember the last meal I had with my dad's father. Um, so my grandmas are the only grandparents who are still alive, and um, yeah, they've seen me go through many different relationships, and I do wonder if that's going to happen again. If the last meal I have with one of my grandmas is, I bring my boyfriend with me because I love him, and
yeah,
then I am mainly thinking about my boyfriend that entire day instead of my grandma, and then grandma dies, and then I have a terrible falling out with boyfriend, and then it's like, wow, I don't
S-
remember the last meal I had with grandma whilst a boyfriend wasn't in the picture.
yeah. If I can give you just kind of a different take on it though, just something to
Yeah.
think about. So the last meal you had with him, I know your concern is that okay, you're fussing over a boyfriend, but think about from his side though, he got to see that okay, she thinks enough of me as her grandfather that it's a big deal that he meets me and that it goes well. I think it
Mm-hmm.
does show that there's a connection there, that there's a clearly a love there. That it
Yeah.
to meet your family was a big enough deal that hey, I need to make sure things go right.
Mm-hmm. I'm the only daughter of my parents, or should I say, I think I'm the only granddaughter of all of my grandparents who has introduced significant others to the grandparents. Um,
See,
I care a lot about their approval.
I mean, I'm sure that they see that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
there's something to be said for when you have important people in your life and you want them to meet each other. And I will say somebody, I think you said you're 24. I'm 11 years older,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I've done that thing of introducing, significant others to family, and it is a lot of stress. I wouldn't beat yourself up over worrying about one piece of it,
Mm-hmm.
but there is this thing of people I care about. I want them to come together, and I want them. It is so stressful that you just want it to go well, and you want them to like each other, and you want both sides to like approve of the other side. I don't know if you felt that. Like
Yeah.
you want your significant other to say, "I like your family." You want your family to say, "I like them."
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of pressure in that, but like I said, I think the fact that you cared enough about him that you're like, "Hey, I want you to meet him." I think that says something about you and how much you loved him.
Yeah.
Now with your grandmothers, I know you said that your one grandmother, she likes to provide and cook, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what she likes to do. Have you like tried to poke at her to say, "Hey, just show me how to make this one dish"?
No.
I I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I have a grandmother that just passed away in December,
Mm-hmm.
and the last couple of years she had dementia and she was not well just physically either. And
Mm-hmm.
that same thing you said about them not recognizing you is really rough because the last time I saw her, she no clue who I was. I think she knew that we were family because I was smiling at her, and I wish I'd had her teach me to make cornbread. That's I know it's a really it's a really simple food and I could probably figure it
I
out.
know.
But the way that she made it was just this grandma love inside of a dish. You
Mm-hmm.
can't you can't replace that. I wish I got her to teach me how to make cornbread.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I won't tell you what to do, but if I could tell you one thing I wish I had done, it would be that. Food's a really powerful thing.
They are.
I know this isn't easy to talk
And
about.
it's not, but I have a very rocky relationship with my mother. So my parents are well aware that I have food dependent exercise induced anaphylaxis, but it's just I I I try to show grace towards other people. Like
Yeah,
it's unrealistic to expect other people to know what this is since it's so rare, and it's also unrealistic to expect other people to remember every single thing that I am anaphylactic towards since the list is so long. And a lot of people are like, non legume wheat? What is that? Is that rice? Is that bread? What does that entail? And for a
yeah.
majority of my teen years, I didn't even know what non legume wheat meant. It was a bunch of trial and error. And so, like, I try to show grace towards other people, but like my mom, every now and then, she'll like remember and then she'll forget and then she'll remember it again. Like there have been many times where I would be at a restaurant with my family and we're all ordering and then my mom will tell the waiter, make sure she doesn't have this food because she's allergic. And it's like she'll pick one food. Like she'll remember that I'm allergic to this one thing and then completely forget about the laundry list of other things I'm allergic to. And then she's like, yeah, I don't feed her this because I don't want her to get an allergic reaction afterwards. But it's also like I tend to plan my workouts a week in advance, if not a month in advance. I don't like spontaneously go out running, especially after
Yeah.
eating foods that I know I'm allergic to. So it's like it's I have told her on numerous occasions that it's very rude to speak for me at restaurants. And it's like, if I'm spending the entire day with my family, then she should know that I'm not going to exercise after lunch. And it's a struggle that I don't think many people can relate to. Because you could always retort, like, well, don't you want people to remember you're disabled? Don't you want people to advocate for you and all that stuff? But it's like, you're not really accommodating.
One, it's your life, your body. It's that thing of let you want to be able to. It's your voice, I guess, is what it comes down to,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. I have a tattoo that says my body, my choice, my life, my voice, and you can interpret it in many different ways.
Oh. I don't think I have anything that deep tattooed on me. Although I've got my daughter's name on my arm.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I think we're coming towards the end here. There's one last question I like to ask everybody that comes on the show,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, if you had a chance to have one last meal with someone you've lost, what would you want that last meal to be? I know you told me your last day on Earth foods, but if it was a situation where it's one last meal, what would you want?
I think, or I would have a meal with my dad's father because I don't remember my last meal with him. So it'd be nice to have a meal with him that I remember.
Yeah. What would you like to have?
I would like to have foga. I'd like to have bangun. The He raised my dad and my aunts and uncles in Vietnam, and unfortunately, I don't think my grandfather ever returned to Vietnam after getting a US citizenship. And that makes me sad. My father also has not been to Vietnam since he immigrated out of, North Vietnam in 79. And so,
Oh, wow.
if I can't, take my dad and my grandfather to Vietnam, the motherland, I would like to, at the very least, have a Vietnamese meal with Grandpa.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
Felicity, I appreciate you coming on so much today and talking with me, and I've really enjoyed getting to speak with you. Before I wrap things up, though, I always like to let people promote anything they're working on. So, is there anything you'd like to promote for us today?
Ooh, okay. So, surprisingly, I never brought this up throughout the past 1.5 hours. I have a podcast all about professional cuddling because for the past 5 years, I've been a professional cuddler, cuddle therapist, cuddle practitioner, whatever word you like to use. I've been doing that for the past 5 years, and I have a lot to say. I know I don't have that many episodes out at the moment, but I am also in the midst of writing a book on professional cuddling. I don't have a set launch date, but hopefully sometime in 2023. And
That's awesome.
I really like going on podcasts that have nothing to do with my podcast and then being like, hey, I'm a professional cuddler. You should learn more about that. And I am a writer, not just, literature book form, but I write a lot of articles on Medium and Substack. And they don't really have anything to do with food, but I do write a lot about my job, and I will soon write an article about my disability. I can't remember all the articles I've written so far, but I can assure you that whichever article you start with, you will learn something new. And that is my goal. I don't try to make everyone think like me. I can't persuade everyone, but I do hope that every person who listens to my podcast, reads my writing, I just want everyone to learn at least one new thing.
I think it's a great goal just in general. Learning, being open. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'll make sure to link to those things in the show notes. Felicity, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you to Felicity for joining me today. I really appreciated her taking the time to talk with me, and I really liked the way that she approached the idea of what would be her last foods that she'd want to eat. I thought that was a really cool concept, and I'm glad that she shared that. I also appreciate her talking so honestly about, how difficult it can be to think back on that last meal that you share with someone you care about, especially if it didn't go the way that you would have liked in hindsight. I'm going to take that as an opportunity to try to be more present when I'm with folks that I care about, and I would invite you all to do the same. I will be sharing links to her podcast that is Pro Cuddle Hustle in the show notes. As always, you can subscribe to Our Last Meal wherever you listen, and please take the time to rate and review so that other people can find the podcast. I would also love it if you would follow Our Last Meal on social media at Our Last Meal Pod. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, any of those I would appreciate. You can also visit ourlastmeal.com, and if you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can reach out by clicking the Share Your Story button at the top of the page. And until next time, please take care of yourselves and go share a meal with someone you care about.